Ladies, let me tell you something most people will never say out loud. Love alone doesn't make a man commit. You can love him deeply, care for him endlessly, and still watch him stay distant, unsure, and emotionally unavailable. Why? Because commitment doesn't come from love. It comes from emotion. Not just any emotion, but the right one. The one that shakes him to his core. The one that makes him realize that losing you would mean losing something rare. For too long, you've been told that if you just love harder, give more, stay patient, he'll eventually see your worth. But that's not how men work. A man doesn't commit when you make yourself available. He commits when he feels the impact of your presence. And even more powerfully, the void of your absence. He commits when your silence speaks louder than your words, when your boundaries make him rise, and when the fear of losing you hits deeper than the comfort of keeping you halfway. This talk isn't about playing games. It's about understanding psychology, emotional truth. It's about reclaiming your power, your worth, your peace. Because the moment you stop trying to convince him and start standing in your value, everything changes. He'll either step up or step out. But either way, you win. Because the emotion that makes a man commit starts with the way you commit to yourself. The emotion behind commitment isn't love. I tease value. Here's something most women don't want to believe. A man can love you deeply and still not commit to you. And it's not because he's cruel or incapable of love. It's because love alone doesn't create commitment. What truly makes a man commit is when he feels that your presence brings a kind of value into his life that he cannot find anywhere else. Love is beautiful, but love can exist in comfort, in routine, even in chaos. Value, on the other hand, changes everything. It awakens a man's fear of losing you. When a man values you, you occupy a different space in his world. You're not the woman who fills his time. You're the woman who changes how he sees time. You're not the person he runs to when he's lonely. You're the person whose peace makes him want to become better. That's the emotional difference. And value isn't about trying harder, giving more, or proving your worth. It's about being the woman who knows her worth so profoundly that her energy alone demands respect. When you overgive, when you chase, when you try to fix him, you may be showing love, but you're lowering your perceived value, because value doesn't chase. Value doesn't beg. Value attracts. When you love from a place of need, he feels pressure. But when you love from a place of power, when you show him that your world doesn't revolve around him, that your life is full, that your peace comes from within, that's when he begins to see your value. That's when he starts asking himself, what if I lose her? What if she walks away and I never find this again? Think about it. When something is valuable, people protect it, respect it, and treat it differently. If you left your phone somewhere, you'd panic. Not because it's a phone, but because it's your phone. It holds your pictures, your memories, your data. It has value to you. The same concept applies to relationships. When a man sees you as irreplaceable, not because you give endlessly, but because you are rare in your energy, your standards, your peace, that's when commitment begins. He's no longer comparing you to anyone else. He's comparing everyone else to you. Men often meet incredible women, but never truly value them because those women lead with their feelings instead of their boundaries. They confuse affection with access. They think if I love him enough, he'll stay. But that's not how men operate emotionally. A man stays where he feels challenged but safe, inspired but grounded, attracted but respected. When you carry yourself with quiet confidence, when you show him that you're kind, but you're not afraid to walk away, you trigger that emotion inside him that says, she's different. And that's the emotion behind commitment. The realization that losing you would cost him peace, admiration, and inspiration. It's not just about missing your texts or your touch. It's about missing the feeling he had when he was with you. That feeling of being seen, understood, and motivated. That feeling of being near someone who doesn't need him, but chooses him. That's where value lives, in choice, not dependency. So when you ask yourself, why won't he commit? The answer isn't that you weren't enough. The answer is that he never felt the loss of your value. You may have given him love, but you didn't allow him to feel your absence. You may have offered comfort, but But you didn't create contrast. The woman who gets commitment isn't the one who gives the most, it's the one who gives with standards. Because love can fade when it's not respected, but value, true, undeniable, emotional value, that's unforgettable. That's the emotion that makes him commit. Not because he feels guilty, not because he feels pressured, but because he finally realizes he cannot replace you. Silence is a woman's greatest strategy. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. And for a woman, it is one of the most powerful tools she will ever possess. In a world where emotions can pull you into chaos, silence becomes the language of strength. It's the moment when you stop chasing answers and start giving yourself peace. When you stop explaining, defending, and justifying, and instead you simply withdraw your energy, because sometimes your absence speaks louder than all the words he ignored. When a woman goes silent, everything changes. A man who once took her presence for granted begins to feel something unsettling, the loss of her attention. See, when you're constantly reaching out, trying to fix, trying to be understood, you are giving him the comfort of knowing that no matter what he does, you're still there. He doesn't feel your absence because you never allow him to. But when you stop talking, when you stop responding, when you stop being available, something happens inside him. He starts to notice the quiet. And that quiet isn't peaceful to him. It's deafening. It echoes with everything you used to say, everything he used to hear but didn't listen to. Silence exposes truth. It reveals how much someone really cares, how much effort they're willing to make, and how quickly they realize what they're losing. It's not manipulation, it's clarity. Because when you stop chasing, the energy shifts. You are no longer the one seeking validation. You're the one holding space. You're allowing the distance to reveal what words couldn't. In silence, you learn who will reach out, who will stay gone, and who will finally recognize your worth. But silence isn't just for him, it's for you. It's the space where you begin to hear your own thoughts again. It's the time where you reconnect with your intuition, your strength, and your calm. Because let's be honest, when you're in emotional chaos, you can't hear your own voice over the noise of fear and attachment. Silence helps you come back home to yourself. You start realizing how much energy you were giving to confusion, how much peace you were sacrificing for answers that were never coming. In silence, you don't lose power, you reclaim it. When you stop explaining your worth, something beautiful happens. You begin to embody it. And that's when people start to feel it. A man especially begins to feel your silence as a kind of distance he can't measure, a mystery he can't solve. And that mystery is powerful, because when you're always available, you're predictable, and predictability kills desire. But when you go silent, you create space for curiosity. He starts to wonder, is she okay? Has she moved on? Is she done with me? That wondering is the seed of realization, and it grows faster in silence than in words. Silence also teaches emotional control. It's saying, I could say a lot right now, but I won't, because I respect my peace more than I need a reaction. That restraint is magnetic. It shows maturity, strength, and self-worth. You're no longer trying to be understood. You're choosing to be felt. And trust me, a man feels silence. It hits him at unexpected times, when he's driving, when he sees something that reminds him of you, when he checks his phone and there's nothing. Silence becomes the mirror he can't escape. But the real beauty of silence lies in its message. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it declares, I've said what I needed to say, now it's your move. It puts the responsibility back where it belongs, in his hands. If he values you, he'll step forward. If he doesn't, his inaction will speak for itself. Either way, your silence protects your dignity. So never mistake silence for indifference. It's not about playing games, it's about protecting your soul. It's the space between ending and beginning, the sacred pause where you heal, realign, and rise stronger. Silence is the boundary between what you can't control and what you refuse to accept. And in that stillness, you find the power that no argument, no apology, no text could ever give you, the power of peace. Healing isn't weakness. IT's reinvention. There's this idea that healing means sitting still, crying endlessly, and trying to forget what hurt you. But that's not healing, that's surviving. Real healing is an act of reinvention. It's not about who broke you, it's about who you choose to become after the pain. It's about standing in front of the mirror, seeing the cracks, and deciding they'll be the reason you shine brighter, not the reason you dim. Healing is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your becoming. When you start healing, you're not weak, you're brave, because it takes courage to face your emotions instead of running from them. It takes strength to admit that something hurt you deeply, but you're still choosing to move forward. Most people avoid healing because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to sit with silence, to confront truths you've been avoiding, to accept that the version of you who tolerated certain things can't go with you anymore. Healing means grieving the woman who once thought she needed someone to complete her and learning to love the woman who realizes she was whole all along. The world doesn't celebrate healing because it's not glamorous. No one claps for you when you choose peace over proving a point. No one applauds when you stay home instead of texting the person who hurt you. Healing happens in quiet moments, in those small choices that don't get noticed but change everything. It's deleting the messages that still hurt to read. It's walking away from a situation that doesn't feel right, even when your heart still wants it. It's choosing yourself again and again, even when it's lonely. That's not weakness, that's transformation in progress. Every time you choose to heal, you're not just moving on from someone, you're moving back into yourself. You're peeling away layers of dependency, fear, and self-doubt. You're remembering your power, your standards, and your purpose. Healing isn't about closing your heart, it's about cleaning it. You're not becoming colder, you're becoming clearer. You're learning to recognize what love is supposed to feel like: safe, steady, reciprocal. And when you reach that place, you stop craving chaos. You stop missing people who drain you. You stop needing closure from those who never gave you clarity. A healed woman radiates differently. You can see it in the way she carries herself. Her peace becomes her perfume. Her boundaries become her beauty. She no longer over-explains why she needs distance. She simply walks away. She doesn't chase validation because her worth is no longer tied to someone else's attention. That's reinvention. That's the woman who rebuilt herself from the ashes of heartbreak, not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by letting the pain teach her what she deserves. And here's the truth. When you start to heal, the same people who once broke you might not recognize you anymore. You'll become too calm for their chaos, too grounded for their games, too wise for their excuses. That's how you know you've evolved. Because healing changes your taste. You stop being drawn to potential and start being drawn to peace. You stop trying to save people and start saving your energy. You realize you don't need to fix love. You just need to protect it. And if it's not mutual, it's not love. Healing also transforms your silence into power. You stop reacting to everything that triggers you. You stop explaining your worth. You stop performing for attention. Instead, you live, you build, you glow. The woman who once begged to be understood now moves in quiet confidence, knowing that her energy will speak for her. That's the rebirth that comes from pain, the reinvention that no heartbreak can take away. So, no, healing isn't weakness. It's the most radical form of strength. It's the moment you stop waiting for someone to save you and realize you were your own rescue all along. Every scar becomes a sentence in your comeback story. Every tear becomes proof that you cared, but also that you survived. Healing doesn't erase your past, it redefines it. It turns pain into wisdom, heartbreak into growth, and endings into beginnings. It's not losing who you were. It's meeting who you were always meant to be. When you pull away, he finally sees you clearly. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that talking, explaining, begging, and proving have done nothing but drain her. She's tried to make him see her worth, to make him understand how much she loves him, to make him care in the way she deserves, and still, he doesn't move. That's the moment she learns something powerful. When you stop trying to make him see you, and you pull away, that's when he finally does. Because sometimes, it takes your absence for a man to finally notice your presence. When you pull away, it's not about punishment, it's about peace. It's about reclaiming the energy you kept giving to someone who didn't know how to handle it. You stop over-explaining, stop reaching out, stop being the one to fix everything. You withdraw your light from where it wasn't appreciated, and you give it back to yourself. That's when something shifts, because as long as you're available, as long as you're trying to make things work, he doesn't have to feel the loss. He knows you'll still be there tomorrow. But when you step back, really step back, the dynamic changes completely. The comfort he took for granted becomes confusion, and that confusion turns into clarity. Men don't usually see what they have when it's right in front of them. Familiarity blinds them. They get comfortable. They assume your loyalty will always be there like air, invisible, constant, taken for granted. But when you pull away, when your voice is no longer in his messages, when your laughter is no longer in his days, when your name no longer pops up on his phone, the silence becomes deafening. Suddenly, the very thing he dismissed as ordinary becomes rare. The woman he thought would always be there starts to fade from his reach, and that's when his vision clears. Because your absence does what your presence couldn't. It makes him reflect, it forces him to sit with himself. With the mistakes, the pride, the distance he created, it's easy to overlook someone who keeps showing up no matter how they're treated. It's harder to forget someone who suddenly stops. That pause, that silence, wakes him up. He starts to replay every moment. The times you were patient, the times you gave more than you got, the way you still cared even when he didn't deserve it. That realization doesn't come when you're talking, it comes when you stop. When you pull away, he begins to see the contrast. The difference between your energy and the noise of everyone else's. He starts to see that no one else listens the way you did. No one else has that softness mixed with strength, that loyalty mixed with peace. And for the first time, he starts to understand the weight of what he's losing. He begins to feel that fear, the fear of being replaced, the fear of knowing he may have let go of something real. That's when he starts asking himself questions he never asked before. Was I wrong? Did I take her for granted? Can I get her back? But by the time he reaches that realization, you've already shifted. You've already started to rediscover yourself outside of him. You've begun to heal, to glow differently, to walk lighter. He sees that too. And that's when it hits him hardest, because the version of you he thought he could always return to no longer exists. You've evolved, you've grown, you've detached from needing his validation, and that new energy, that self-assured calm, is what truly makes him see you clearly. The irony is that clarity often comes too late. The man who once couldn't decide now finds himself replaying memories, wishing for a second chance. He sees now that your silence wasn't coldness, it was a lesson. He sees that your distance wasn't indifference, it was dignity. And he finally understands that your love wasn't the problem. It was his inability to recognize it. That's what happens when you pull away. He doesn't just see you differently, he finally feels what he was blind to all along. When you pull away, you don't lose him. You lose the illusion that you needed to make him see, and in that moment you gain something far more powerful, your self-respect, your peace, and the ability to walk away knowing that the real you no longer has to prove anything to anyone. Because the right man won't need you to pull away to see your worth. He'll recognize it from the moment he meets you. Boundaries create desire. Let's get one thing straight. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors, with locks that only you hold the key to. And that key represents your value. Every woman needs to understand this. A man doesn't fall for the woman who gives him everything. He falls for the woman who makes him earn it. Because desire doesn't live in what's easily accessible. It thrives in what's respected, what's rare, and what's not given away carelessly. Boundaries are what create that respect. Boundaries are what create desire. When you have boundaries, you're telling the world and every man in it that your time, your energy, and your love are sacred. You're not just available because someone wants you, you're available when it's right. And that difference changes everything. Because a man can't truly value what he hasn't had to value himself. If you hand him your heart before he's shown you his intentions, he'll take it lightly. But when you make him show up, when you make him earn his place in your life, he doesn't just want you, he respects you. Boundaries create mystery, not games. There's a big difference between manipulation and self-respect. A woman who plays games tries to control a man. A woman with boundaries controls herself. She knows when to walk away. She knows when to say no. She knows that silence is sometimes louder than words, and that control, that composure, that calm confidence is magnetic. It makes him want to step up, not because he feels pressured, but because he feels inspired. You see, when you say no to disrespect, no to inconsistency, no to confusion, you're not pushing him away. You're inviting him to rise. You're telling him, if you want access to me, you need to bring your best. And the right man will, because a man's desire grows where there's challenge, not chaos, but challenge. The challenge of being with a woman who knows her worth. The challenge of meeting a woman who won't settle for crumbs. Boundaries protect your emotional energy. They remind you that not everyone deserves access to your heart. They teach him that you're not here to babysit his indecision. You're not here to chase love that hides. You're not here to prove that you're worthy. You already are. That's what boundaries do. They shift the power back where it belongs, with you. Think about it. When a woman has no boundaries, she becomes predictable. She answers every call, forgives every mistake, accepts every excuse. And what happens? He stops trying. He stops showing effort because he doesn't have to. But when a woman has boundaries, when she pauses before replying, when she distances herself after being disrespected, when she chooses peace over chaos, suddenly she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the woman he can't quite figure out because she's not reacting, she's responding. She's not desperate for his attention, she's selective about her energy. Men respect boundaries even when they resist them, because deep down, boundaries communicate self-worth. They say, I value myself too much to allow this. And that message echoes louder than any declaration of love ever could. That's what creates long-term attraction. That's what keeps the respect alive. Love without boundaries fades into convenience, but love that's framed by standards, that's what turns into commitment. When you build boundaries, you don't push love away, you protect it. You protect your peace, your heart, and your dignity. And the right man, the one who's truly ready, won't be turned off by them, he'll rise to meet them. Because a man who's serious about you doesn't want easy, he wants meaningful. He doesn't want someone who gives him everything too soon. He wants someone who knows the value of what she gives. So don't be afraid to draw the line. Don't be afraid to say, this is how I deserve to be treated. Boundaries don't scare away the right man. They filter out the wrong ones. They keep your world filled with people who see you, who value you, who choose you intentionally. And that's the kind of desire that lasts. Not the fleeting chase, but the deep, enduring pull toward a woman who respects herself enough to stand firm in what she deserves. The emotion that changes everything, fear of losing you. There's one emotion that makes a man stop, think, and change. And it's not love, not attraction, not even desire. It's fear, the fear of losing a woman he finally realizes he can't replace. That fear cuts through his pride, his ego, his distractions. It shakes him awake because love alone doesn't always make a man commit. But the thought of losing love that was real, rare, and grounding, that's what makes him act. Every man reaches that moment. That silent, sobering moment when he feels the absence of the woman who once made his world softer, brighter, and calmer. He goes through his routine, checks his phone, sees no message from her, and something inside him starts to ache. The calls that used to come don't. The comfort he once took for granted fades. The woman he thought would always be there is gone. And that's when the fear begins to settle in. You see, when a woman pulls away with peace, not anger, not revenge, just quiet strength, it terrifies a man in a way he can't explain. Because that silence isn't cold, it's final. It's the kind of silence that says, I'm done trying to be seen by someone who refuses to open his eyes. That's when his world shifts. Because suddenly, he's faced with the reality that she's no longer waiting, no longer hoping, no longer fighting for a love that only she was protecting. Fear of losing you isn't about control. It's about clarity. It's that moment when a man realizes that what he had with you wasn't ordinary. It's when he starts to remember how your presence made him feel safe, grounded, inspired. He recalls the way you spoke to him with kindness even when you were hurting, the way you supported his dreams, the way your laughter filled his silence. And when that's gone, he feels it in his soul. Because deep down, men know when they've had something real, even if they only realize it after it's gone. That fear of losing you triggers a man's self-awareness in ways nothing else can. He starts questioning his own choices. Why did I pull away? Why didn't I give her more? Why did I assume she'd always wait? That internal conflict is what begins his growth. But notice, it doesn't happen when you're chasing him, calling him, or begging for clarity. It happens when you stop, when you choose yourself instead, when your silence becomes his mirror, reflecting all the ways he failed to show up. The most powerful thing a woman can do is detach with grace, because it's not your absence that hurts him. It's what your absence represents. It represents the loss of a woman who gave him loyalty, effort, and care that can't be found in every face he meets. It represents the end of his comfort zone, the end of being half in and half out. And in that loss, he's forced to see the truth. He either rises to meet your worth or loses access to it forever. Here's what's ironic. When you were giving him everything, he felt secure. When you loved him openly, he felt safe. But it's when you stop that he feels fear, because deep down, he knows no other woman will love him in that same way, with that same softness, depth, and authenticity. That realization doesn't come with your words, it comes with your withdrawal. So don't ever be afraid of walking away. Don't ever be afraid to let him feel that fear, because that's the emotion that wakes him up. That's the emotion that breaks his patterns. That's the emotion that forces him to choose between growth or regret. Some men, once they feel it, will finally commit. Not because they're scared of being alone, but because they've understood your value too late to take it lightly again. Others will lose you forever. And that too is part of your power, because the fear of losing you is never really about losing access to you. It's about losing the version of himself that he only became when he was loved by you. That's what changes everything. That's what transforms a man from careless to careful, from passive to purposeful. So let him feel it. Let him see what life is like without your warmth, your energy, your presence. Because when a woman truly knows her worth, the most powerful emotion she can ever inspire is the fear of losing her. Ladies, listen to me. You are not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong man. You don't need to convince someone to see your worth. You just need to stop standing where it isn't valued. A man commits when he feels something he can't live without. And the only way he can feel that is when you stop trying to be enough for him and start being everything for yourself. Your silence is not weakness, it's elegance. Your healing is not distance, it's alignment. Your standards are not walls, they're protection. Let him feel the loss, you feel the rise. Because the day you stop chasing love is the day love finally starts chasing you.